A very disappointing road trip for the Bucks, who managed to go 1-2, but they could have very easily been 0-3 here. You won Thursday in San Antonio against the Spurs, facing inferior competition, and largely because of the individual performance of Giannis. Same thing tonight, as when you look up and down the stat sheet here, the only thing that prevented this from being a full-on blowout was the play of Giannis, who has been absolutely spectacular all season long. But in this recent stretch here, the Bucks have not had a running mate for him. Damian Lillard and Chris Middleton both struggled shooting the basketball tonight. They combined for 28 points, that duo did. And we continue to see some of the main problem issues keep popping up for this Bucks team. Another game where the Bucks were not good on the offensive glass. This was their worst offensive rebounding performance of the season, as a matter of fact. It was trending towards the worst, or one of the worst, that we have seen in all of the NBA this season. And it really started in the first half with that 21-point deficit that the Bucks got into, which, again, started at the point of attack, with the defense on the perimeter not doing a good job or a good enough job of containing. It led to some more blow-bys and the Rockets getting downhill and putting pressure on the Bucks defense. We've talked about this on seemingly every show, that the Bucks just need to do a much better job rebounding the basketball on both ends, and especially late. We heard from Adrian Griffin after the game, all these rebounds, it still counts as the same in the stat sheet, but there was a couple of them that seemed to be deflating and backbreakers, where you have to defend for 48 minutes. You have to defend each possession for 24 seconds. And we saw a number of times that was not the case, where you didn't play all the way through, and it allowed the Houston Rockets to get second chance opportunities and score off of those. And when you're trying to erase a double-digit deficit, those are the things you don't have room for. You don't have the margin for error, and unfortunately, those are the areas that the Bucks have struggled with most so far this season. 855-616-1620 is the Old National Bank Talk and text line to join us tonight on Bucks Talk. I'm sure there is a lot on all of your minds. I'm sure it's very, very similar approaches here, because we have continued to have the same conversations over and over. And I have preached on this, that this whole process is going to take time. Things will look better when Jay Crowder is back, and that could be potentially as early as Monday or Thursday from the sounds of it. He's going to help you. He's not going to fix everything. And what we saw tonight, too, was another one of those times that you have to question, is this an admission by Adrian Griffin and his staff that maybe we do need to shake some things up? We saw Andre Jackson Jr. starting the second half of this game with the starters in place of Malik Beasley. A game where Malik Beasley, again, played less than 20 minutes and only attempted one shot tonight. It's something that I'm sure a lot of Bucks fans, anybody we talk to tonight, I'm sure that'll be one of the areas that's brought up. It's been mentioned all throughout the season, does this make sense to change things a little bit and to bring in more of a defensive-minded player in that fifth starter spot? It would really serve two purposes. Number one, help out the defense in some of those areas we've talked about with guards, with the perimeter, beating the point of attack defense that the Bucks have put on them. And look, we've spent a lot of time. I do want to get to the calls that are coming in before we go off on this once more. We've spent a lot of time going over what's happening with the defense and why this is not working with this style. If you're pressuring that far away from the basket and pulling your defense out there, those rebounding issues are going to continue to persist. That maybe the larger picture is do we need to change our approach here? But in this game, I mentioned the points or the minutes by Malik Beasley. 5 minutes in the third quarter, did not play in the fourth quarter. 3 minutes in the second quarter. Played a lot with the starters in the first quarter, and it dropped off precipitously after that. 16 minutes tonight for Beasley, one shot attempt. And look, I said it may serve two purposes. The elephant in the room is it's difficult. If you do want to make that switch, whether it's Marjan, whether it's Andre Jackson Jr., Pat Connaughton, Jay Crowder when he comes back, if you do make a switch in the starting lineup, it would most likely be removing Malik Beasley. And the tough part with that is, he only took one shot attempt tonight, but Malik Beasley has shot the ball very well this season. Malik Beasley is not the most gifted defensive player, but Malik Beasley has given you that effort there. He's given you that energy there. The results may not have yielded what you're looking for, but you can't fault him for lack of effort out there. He has bought into this, and he's given you his all on the defensive end of the floor. It just hasn't been enough. And that's always tough to make that trade-off when you're doing everything the coaching staff is asking of you, and still it's time to move on. But it may be there, not just for those defensive issues, but it's another game where your bench is nearly doubled up by the opposition. 22 points from the second unit tonight. Pat Connaughton with a majority of it. Bobby Portis struggled once again, 2 of 5 from the field. And we're starting to see more and more. Bobby Portis is very, very good and efficient at home. We've seen the numbers tail off on the road this season. Marjan Beauchamp with 5 points. But Marjan, Andre Jackson Jr., Pat Connaughton, Cameron Payne, none of these guys are going to be high-volume scoring guys. That's the other area you would point to, is we need more pop from our bench. That's the area that you would lean on Malik Beasley. So it did not come up to Adrian Griffin. I'm sure it's something that will start to be addressed more and more in the coming days, especially if this issue with the second unit remains of you're not getting a whole lot of scoring there. And when you make those changes, where have we typically seen leads start to erase for the Bucks? It's been in those second quarters. It's been late in the first quarter. Damian Lillard's out there, but when you pull Giannis off the floor, that's where we've started to see this turnover. That's where it was tonight, where the Rockets, granted, it wasn't a large lead for the Bucks, but that's where the Rockets took control of the game and never looked back. So there's a lot to really digest and think about after a tough and a very disappointing performance tonight in Houston. 855-616-1620, the Old National Bank Talk and text line to join us tonight on Bucks Talk. Let's not keep him waiting any longer. Let's head out to the phone lines and chat with Dick in Port Washington. What's your take on this whole road trip, Dick?
Delusional. First, Dylan DeVillen didn't even play tonight, and our coaching staff didn't take advantage of that. I think, first of all, I want to make sure Justin in North Carolina hears me and then calls in, because I want to hear what he has to say. I have never heard a post-game coach's discussion that is more delusional than I heard tonight. He said, and I wrote this down, we're playing good defense. What planet? He says we're going to figure it out. We haven't figured it out. Dame's going to figure it out. Dame's got issues. It's hard to go through a divorce, move to a new town, and all this stuff. He's going to be great next year, maybe not this year. Thanks. I just need a couple more minutes here, okay? I don't get this. Prunty comes up and is in the ear of our coach all the time. Where's Oppenheimer? All right? Oh, man. I still do not get why we never have – tonight again. We had Giannis and Dame on the bench at the same time. That is such a simple solution to something. And it's time. Justin, you remember when early in the season, all these idiots on the internet were saying, we got to get rid of Griffin. I called in and defended him staunchly several times. We have to make a change. This season is going to go in the tank. We'll be lucky to make the play-in tournament. We have no defense. I don't even see any changes to make that improvement. He throws guys in willy-nilly. I used to get mad at Coach Bud for that because I thought all he was trying to do is get playing time for these guys. This guy is trying to get something better than this. I'm a little worked up. I'm sorry. What do you think of what I said?
I mean, it's hard to disagree with a lot of it. And I kind of had the same reaction in listening to the post game that, look, I get you're not going to come out here and just put your players on blast and say, well, we didn't do this and we didn't do this. Now, some coaches do. Some coaches get away with it. But that's not going to be the approach of Adrian Griffin. But, I thought there was one question specifically. I should text Eric, that Eric Name asked Griff about the defense for the Bucs. At least my assumption. I should clear this up with him. The way it was worded, my assumption was Eric was asking him what we just kind of talked about of, are you sure this is the right defense? Like pressuring that far away from the basket and trying to pressure at the point of attack and cause turnovers when you may not have the personnel for it. It's seemingly creating a lot of very good looks against you that we've seen Brook Lopez's contests, while they're not as high as they were a season ago. He's been under fire on a nightly basis, and it just seems like every time you look up, the opponent is getting into the paint and putting pressure on the Bucs defense, and it's not just running a two-man game of, well, they're running a lot of pick and rolls, and that's how they beat us. It's not that. They're getting past the initial point of attack, and my assumption was that's what Eric was getting at, and Griff took it as asking about their offense and answered it the other way, but that's the one thing I think we're all kind of interested on is we saw that adjustment of putting Brook in the drop. It seems like it may be time to examine the rest with the defense.
Okay. Another thing, I'm getting – Justin, I love you, but every night you keep saying, he was hired the same week. We expected to go with Drew and everything, okay? He hasn't adapted. This season is going to go in the toilet if we don't make a change. We got Doc Rivers available. Get a veteran coach that use this. He's in over his head. I'm sorry. He is.
I don't.
Prunty coming up? Prunty couldn't manage when Jason Kidd was fired.
I don't disagree with what you just said there. It is fair to point out he assumed he would have Drew Holiday. That's fair to go with for the first couple of weeks of the season. But I agree with your point of
not anymore.
Right. It's time to assess this and say, okay, we tried it this way. It's not working. We should move on to something else. I look out there. My wife even pointed out, okay, and I brought her up before, and usually I got in trouble for pointing her out. But she even said, you know what? They just don't look organized. They don't. It's, look, how many times tonight it seemed like did we see that Giannis is the organizer now? He was becoming that as the game went on. And how many times?
You know what?
Well, and the other part, real quick.
He got sick of the organization and just took it upon himself.
Well, in a game.
I wish Dan would shoot more. And I guess I think he's got this view that he has got to step up in the fourth quarter. I just think the burden on him with his personal problems, we're going to see the best of him next year. But we have to figure out this year. I still look at this team. I look at Boston. We match up, even with them, I think a little bit better. Who else is there in the East?
Philadelphia.
What happened to Beasley? What now? You got to give a guy a chance to get back in his groove. And so now he's yanking. I just don't get some of this. And I think Bobby has issues with him. He hasn't been the same. I'm sorry. This is important. and I'm ranting at you.
Look.
I'm sorry.
Well, look, and thanks for the call as always, Dick. The big thing, the last thing that he said, this is important, is your window is closer to closing and getting closed than it is being propped open. You still have Giannis in the prime of his career, and another incredible performance tonight from Giannis. 64% shooting, scored 48 points, had 17 rebounds. Another game where, oh, by the way, he was 70% or better at the free throw line. And who would have thought the problem was everybody but Giannis at the free throw line tonight? But Giannis is still in the prime of his career. You have Brook Lopez that's in his mid-30s and has 2 years left on that contract. Chris Middleton has 2 years with a player option, but he's getting to that same point in age. Damian Lillard and Drew Holiday were the exact same age, and we were having the same conversation about Drew Holiday. So this is a group that is the second oldest roster in the league. Pat Connaughton turned 31 today. You're getting closer to the end of it than you are to the beginning of this run. And that's why, as Dick says, this is important. Well, it is important because you don't have any years to burn to look back and say, man, we should have done this differently. You've done that for the last 2 years. Where at first it was, well, if only Chris Middleton didn't slip on a wet spot and gets injured against the Celtics, we feel like we defend our championship and go on to possibly win 2 in a row. We took the Boston Celtics to 7 games without Chris. Then the following year, you saw the importance, at least from the outside it appeared, you saw the importance of home court and said, you know, one of the bigger issues that we had, not just the absence of Chris Middleton, but the fact that we had to go to Boston for Game 7 in that series. We want Game 7 at our place. So you put together that run all season long, and especially down the stretch, post-All-Star break, where you finish with the best record in the league and get the 1 seed. And you got outclassed by the Miami Heat. Now we can point to, well, Giannis got hurt in Game 1. He did. Did he look the same? Maybe not. Part of that, I'm sure, was the back. Part of that, too, is Miami does a very good job of defending Giannis, largely because of the personnel that they have. But it's 2 straight years that you had these yeah-buts and looked at, well, if only this. It's starting to pile up. And that's 2 years. You are now going to be 3 years removed from that championship team. And that's why we say the window is moving closer to being closed. It's not that this is it. But every year, every day, every postseason that you approach and go into, that is going to be the best chance you had. It will decrease every year afterward because of the age. And because you need to be very good, you need to be very healthy, you need to be very lucky. All of those things need to converge. They did in 2021. You could make a strong argument the Bucks have not had health or luck in either of the last 2 postseasons. But who would have thought this year it's the good portion that you need to address more than anything else. 855-616-1620, the Old National Bank Talk and Text line to join us on the show tonight. Dick called them out, and I think we'll have a response when we return from Justin in North Carolina. That and the rest of your thoughts after this on Bucks Talk.
You're listening to Bucks Talk.
There's no doubt about it. It does help when you're not paying bigger commissions, especially when you're getting absolutely everything a 6% broker offers. This is Angela Calais with Benefit Realty, and we're discount real estate agents. And all that means is we give you 100% full services and home marketing for less. That's it. With all things being equal, why on earth would you ever pay more than the 3.5 to 3.9% real estate commission that we charge? Benefit Realty, full service for less. Benefit-realty.com. There are definitely a number of cases in which a client was trying to sell their home with a 6% broker and the home was just sitting on the market. Sometimes a difference of a few $1,000s can mean getting an offer or a home continuing to sit. Discounted commissions allow you to adjust the price of your home without sacrificing equity, and that can make all the difference. Full-service real estate agents at discount commissions of 3.5 to 3.9%. That's what you'll get from Benefit Realty, where we make your move simple and affordable. Benefit-realty.com.
The signs of forgiveness in this world come from the cross. Forgiveness offered to us like an engagement ring from God. Will you receive it? Will you put it on and wear it? Will you be set free to follow God's Son and pray, "Our Father, forgive us as we forgive"?
Dr. Michael Ziegler this week on The Lutheran Hour.
The Lutheran Hour, Sunday mornings at 6:30 on WTMJ. With tens of thousands of satisfied patients across America, it's no surprise QC Kinetics gets 5-star reviews.
I'm feeling on top of the world because of QC Kinetics.
I'm able to do the things that I wasn't able to do for a long time.
I can recommend them highly.
I would recommend QC to anybody.
QC Kinetics has changed my life.
I couldn't believe it. I honestly was skeptical, but the pain went from a 10 to a 0.
Real people with real lasting relief from joint pain.
QC Kinetics Regenerative Medicine is regenerating me.
It was super successful, and I recommend everyone seek out QC Kinetics as an alternative to surgery.
This non-surgical approach is definitely the future.
I tell as many people as possible. I am an ambassador. I love QC Kinetics.
QC Kinetics, the nation's leader in advanced regenerative medicine. No drugs, no surgery. Call QC Kinetics now for your free consultation.
Call QC Kinetics, 414-285-3474. That's 414-285-3474. 414-285-3474.
Hey, John Mercure here for my friends at Dave Drake Camp Heating. You know, the seasons fly by so fast. Summer ends, school starts, the leaves fall. Thanksgiving gives way to the big Christmas run-up. And just like that, it's all done. And we're pulling out the champagne to ring in the new year. Where does the time go? Looking back at the time spent with friends and family that have gathered at our home this year and years past, I'm thankful for the comfort we enjoy all throughout the year, courtesy of the great team and my friends at Dave Drake Camp Heating. From the new system they installed now several years ago to the care they've shown keeping my system up and running, their commitment to their customers is something I'm truly grateful for. For over 40 years now, Dave Drake Camp Heating has been as reliable as the seasons and a family company you can count on. If you're not feeling so grateful for your current heating contractor this past year, make it your New Year's resolution to give the team at Dave Drake Camp Heating a try. 262-367-2820 or visit davedrakecamp.com.
The Roundball Repartee returns. This is Bucks Talk.
One 112-108, our final in Houston. The Rockets take down the Bucks, so a 1-2 road trip for Milwaukee, who returns home Monday night for the first of 4 games. 3 Western Conference opponents and 1 East. That one Eastern Conference team is the Boston Celtics, so it won't get much easier. Even the Utah Jazz, who you'll have here, they beat the Sixers tonight. And I know there was no Joel Embiid, but the Jazz are still a well-coached team with some talent there. So that is not going to be an easy one on Monday. Then you have the Kings and the Golden State Warriors, who may have Draymond Green back for that game. 855-616-1620 is the Old National Bank Talk and text line to join us tonight on Bucks Talk. Let's head to the phone lines and talk with Justin in North Carolina.
Hey, man, my guy Dick called for me, so I felt that I should call in. So, shout out to Dick, shout out to his lovely wife. Hey, man, I understand the passion and the frustration tonight. Tonight was pretty bad across the board for a lot of the guys that we depend on, right? Dame Lillard, this is awful. This is an awful road trip for him. But I understand what Dick's saying about going through a divorce and how tough this is as a challenge, but I truthfully believe Dame Lillard is a top 75 and 75 player. I believe he is one of the best guards in this league, and I believe that he will rebound and we will be just fine. I really do. Now, we want to talk about Dr. Griffin and some of the things that he did, right, that were negative. And Dick hit all those on the head. I don't even really think I need to touch on them. Press conference, but I kind of get where he's coming from. Like, you can have your glass half full or you can have it half empty. One thing to remember as Bucks fans, this is all a trial run from us. We don't want any more banners for the Central Division Championship or anything else like that. We are solely focused on the championship. So this is where we're going to try stuff. I love the adjustment of starting Ajax in the second half. I thought that was key, and that really got Houston unraveled a little bit and allowed us at least to make a basketball game of it, right? No participation trophies up. Also, I thought I saw Marjan grow a lot during this game. And during the last 2 minutes, he shot a 3 right on the money, a little bit short. It happens. One thing we cannot blame Dr. Griffin for, though, is wide open misses that are happening from us. It's not just Dame. Middleton was missing tonight. I believe they were, 1 for 13 from the three-point line tonight? Bobby Portis had another tough road trip. I don't think these guys are who they are. There's an old saying that guys will play to the back of their card, whether it be baseball, basketball, football, whatever the case is. None of the guys that showed up on this road trip, with the exception of Mr. Antetokounmpo, played up to the back of their basketball card.
No, I mean, that last part is certainly not debatable, that this is 2 games in a row where Giannis puts up those stats that he does. You need somebody else to give you something. Yeah, Dame and Chris, 28 combined points. They were 1 of 13 on threes. You throw in Brooke, there were 2 of 19 from that trio. And that's especially huge when you got Malik Beasley only playing 16 minutes and only took 1 3 in this game. So I do agree with that, you can't fault Adrian Griffin for missed open looks. And the Bucks have really been, I think, one of the bigger differences this year versus the last couple years was there's a lot of shooting variance, right? And we would point to it after every game when the opponent would knock down 22 threes and shoot 55%, that we were quick to point to, well, just a tough shooting night. That was the outlier performance, and that's not going to happen. And that usually held true. The Bucks would have those games pop up occasionally, but for the most part, they were very consistent. They also ran into a lot of shooting luck, and that's stuff that seems to balance out. This year, that hasn't really been the case, where the Bucks have not had those shooting luck games where the opponent is missing a good open looks. Their defense has lived up to the numbers, that part. Offensively, it does seem like they're starting to miss some more, but let's also keep in mind, this is a good defensive Houston Rockets team. Even with the missed shots, they held the Bucks to 46% shooting and 108 points scored. So it's a good defense they went up against. But it just does seem like at times, tonight especially, it felt like there was a lot of ball watching. And we saw early in the season there was a lot of movement. They finished with 20 assists on 35 field goals, which isn't bad, but we've seen these stretches of ball movement, and I think that's easy to understand why. When you have guys like Damian Lillard and Giannis on the team, that especially if you're a guy like Andre Jackson Jr. or MarJon, it's probably easy to sit back and watch and say, well, let's let those 2 guys go to work. But that's been their biggest issue offensively.
Absolutely. And I think one of the other things to take a caveat to is, I can't remember the gentleman's name, but we had the new coach come in from Australia. So let's give him a little bit of time to get some wind under his sails. Also, I wanted to point out a few gaps from the referees. And I know that refereeing isn't the reason why we missed some of those open shots that we previously talked about, Justin. But some of those calls, Jabari Smith isn't even out there playing basketball tonight. I would love to see that in Lambeau Field tomorrow from our Packers, the way he was out there hitting guys. And to think that second foul wasn't called a flagrant, and some of the stuff we've seen Bobby and those guys called for, and then if you think about it, and this is if come maybe, but he's not wide open in the corner to hit that game-changing 3, right? The fact that you have a ball clearly go off of Jeff Green's leg, and as a referee, I'm sorry, they're professionals just like Giannis and those guys are. They got to be in position to make those calls. I saw a lot of ticky-tack stuff today, and I'm not solely blaming the referees, but we got to call them out as well. Now, the other thing I'm going to say, and then I'm going to let you go for your other callers and stuff like that, is, man, just take a deep breath. It's January 6th. I know we keep saying that, but just take a deep breath. This is the type of stuff we want to have on January 6th versus May 6th. I'm going to go ahead and step out on a limb. On this next homestand, we're going to win every game.
Every game.
We're going to make the adjustments. And
Bold prediction.
Every single game.
So you think they're taking care of the Celtics?
Right now. I think they're taking care of the Celtics. It's not going to be close. I think Dame is going to have his best game as a Buck against the Celtics.
All right.
We're going to send a message.
How much of this is you strongly believe this versus you hope this?
No, I just strongly believe it. There's so many times where you give these guys bulletin board material. We all do it. I'm sure some of these guys read Twitter. They listen to the post-game shows. They hear the national media, especially Kendrick Perkins. He's found every way to say that this team, that team is better than us this year, which is fine. And I think that at some time, Giannis and these guys like Middleton are going to have a gut check, and Dame's going to come along for the ride. And I know we saw Halliburton point at his wrist at one time in Vegas. But I think at the end of the year, Dame will be doing that with a trophy in his hand. I really believe it. Matter of fact, I'm so confident in it, Justin. I got to go to Virginia for work on Monday. I'm putting $100 down that we beat the Celtics.
All right, we'll check back with you on Thursday after that big Bucks and Celtics game, Justin, in North Carolina. Thanks, as always, for the call. 855-616-1620, the Old National Bank Talk and Text line. More of your thoughts after this on Bucks Talk.
The Hardwood Homilies continue after this. This is Bucks Talk.
Meet Alan, who was diagnosed with sleep apnea.
I was what they call a mouth breather, and I would breathe at night with my mouth open.
And for about 8 years, Alan struggled with a CPAP machine. And then
I saw the Advent commercial, and I thought, well, what do you got to lose? This machine is miserable.
For most people, CPAP machines are miserable, but a simple breathing triangle solution from Advent can be life-changing.
And it really was, to me, it was amazing because I don't think I ever breathed that clear.
This is Dr. Madan Kandula. After having one of Advent's simple breathing triangle procedures, people are amazed at how freely and clearly they can breathe.
I'm happy with the procedure. I'm very glad I did it. I wish I would have done it 20 years ago. I could have avoided that machine I had to have laying next to the bed with the hose wrapped around my head.
Schedule your appointment at AdventKnows.com because Advent knows when you breathe well, you live better. AdventKnows.com. Results may vary.
According to the U.S. debt clock, our debt is over $32 trillion and climbing. The question is, how do we pay it off? One of the most likely answers is increasing taxes. Now think about your retirement accounts. Do you want to pay taxes on some of that money now when rates are historically low, or later when rates are potentially higher? At Drake & Associates, we can help you create a plan so your retirement is tax efficient as possible. If you'd like to continue your education, we have our Retirement Ready Toolkit, which includes guides on retirement tax savings. To receive this complimentary toolkit, call or text TAX to 414-409-9982. That's calling or texting TAX to 414-409-9982. When taxes go up, will you be ready? Call or text now.
Investment advisory services provided by Drake & Associates, LLC, an SEC-registered investment advisor. Insurance products are offered through a separate company, Loft Financial Advisory Group, LLC, a Wisconsin insurance agency. Clients are under no obligation to purchase any recommended insurance products.
Heart disease won't stop us. Diabetes, allergies, cancer. Nothing will keep the Freighter and the Medical College of Wisconsin Health Network from pushing Wisconsin ahead. We're constantly raising the bar for medical excellence and providing more ways to receive it, so you have it for all your health needs, big and small. Let's push ahead, and we'll make life here as great as it can be. Visit Freighter.com to find out how.
Welcome back to Bucks Talk.
All right, this is week 11 of the NBA season, and the result tonight, the loss in Houston to the Rockets, 112-108, means the Bucks finished the road trip 1-2, but they lost at home on New Year's Day to the Pacers. This is, in week number 11, the first week this season that the Bucks will have a losing record for the week, going 1-3 this week.
Not bad. Week 11?
Week 11. So next week, if we're saying the week starts Sunday, next week you'll have the Utah Jazz, the Boston Celtics, and the Golden State Warriors all at home. I think the big part is this, that I appreciate the optimism that Justin has had, and then you have the pessimism on Dick's side.
You got to get the two of them on together.
Yeah, like
yin and yang.
I try to be the voice in the middle, in between both of them. But I think the thing is this. You know, I do agree that, look, it's January. I would rather be having these conversations and trying to figure out how do we fix this January 6th versus May 6th. I mean, June 6th, I'll take that because that means you're in the finals. But I get that sentiment. But the thing is this, like, you got to fix it now because this is the month that you would point to of if we can just keep hovering around where Boston is and keep somehow winning some of these games when it hasn't looked pretty. Keep taking care of business in these games with the schedule that we have in January. We got a shot to finish with that one seed. Now, again, what does that actually mean? I don't know. We've seen the Bucks go over in those seasons when they've been the 1 seed recently. They won the title as a 3 seed. They lost in the first round as a 1 seed last year. Home court advantage is important. I don't know how important it is.
I think it's a lot more important this year than it was in years past.
I feel like we said that the last 2 years, though.
You rattle off 6 in a row in a homestand in December. You go on the road to start the new year. You finish 1-2. The writing's on the wall. Now, January is different than April, but
we should also
just never
point
know.
out those 6 games were against the Bulls, and they were just starting to play much better right then. But still, against the Bulls, against this Rockets team, against the Spurs.
With no Wemby.
Against the Magic team that was down some of their players, against the Pistons. And that's what I'm trying to get to here is this month is really the end of, I'm not going to say you're coasting, but the easiest portion of the schedule, it ends this month. Now, this was, the stretch from now until the end of next week, the first half of January is your difficult portion of the month because you have 2 games against the Pacers who may as well be the 86 Celtics against the Bucks with the way that they look. So you got 2 games against the Pacers. You had 3 straight on the road, and then you got the Boston Celtics at home. The Warriors, as I mentioned, Draymond Green, the suspension, it's over. So he's ramping up to return to the floor. They said that would be about a week. And 1 week from today is when the Warriors are in Milwaukee. So you may see Draymond Green in that game. And then you got the Kings, who have been playing very well as well. After that is when it's basically the Central Division. You got that stretch. You got 2 games with the Cavaliers, 3 games with the Cavaliers. 2 of them are at home, 2 games on the road in Detroit. You got the Blazers on the road at the end of the month, but in between there, you have the Pelicans, who have been playing very good lately, and on the road in Denver. So those home games especially, you got to take care of business in. And that's why that loss New Year's Day especially hurt against the Indiana Pacers. But from here on out, and especially those games, that's more games against Cleveland where you're probably not going to see Evan Mobley or Darius Garland, especially the home games. You got to win those because everything starts to change once you come out of the All-Star break and even in the month of February altogether. You got a road trip Western Conference teams, but in Dallas, in Utah, which the Bucks have still struggled to win in Utah for decades now, in Phoenix, maybe they're starting to turn the corner and get healthy and figure things out. They've been in a for all the talk we've had about the Bucks, Phoenix Suns, same issues defensively, but they've had health issues as well. Then you got the Timberwolves coming to town, and the Nuggets, and the Miami Heat. So it starts to pick up right around the All-Star break, big time in February, and that month of March is going to be brutal, where you have the Warriors on the road, the Lakers on the road, the Clippers on the road, the Kings on the road, part of a 4-game road trip in Boston. The Lakers come here. The Suns come here. The Clippers come here. It is a brutal month of March. So this is really that last stretch of scheduling you would point to and say consistently, the Bucks would be favored in this game. They should win this game because it's going to start to turn around big time, and you need these issues worked out before that schedule starts to kick up because you don't want to be working through that and figuring out all these things we said of the chemistry. You got to improve rebounding. How do you improve your transition offensively and defensively? You don't want to be working through that while, oh, by the way, now the schedule has gotten much more difficult. That's why January is very important for the Bucks. 855-616-1620, the Old National Bank talk and text line. Let's head back to the phone lines and talk with James on the south side.
Yeah, we wasted Giannis's double tonight, and it seems that we're doing that a lot. Like you said, you need another player or two to step on up. It's kind of redundant type of thing, and also what has been happening in the season here. I think you're going to wear the Bucks up before half is coming back from 15 or 20 points. I mean, how many times are you going to do that on the road or at home to try to get wins on some of these teams that you should be able to beat easily. It's kind of bad news. I mean, something's got to happen here, or we're going to have us sink like a anchor here the second half of this season. What do you think?
Yeah, and thanks for the call, James. I think the number is 16. I think it was 16 out of the 36 games this season. They've fallen behind by 10 or more points. It's not quite half, but it's almost there. And that's, tonight too. When this started to build up, and once it got to 20, I am not going to question effort by a player. You'll never hear me do that. We don't know. We're not inside their minds. But when you looked at the floor tonight, you could see there's one guy especially that has given it everything he's got. That is, if not for this guy, who knows where that score would be. It just seemed like if you watch this game tonight from start to finish, you had no background on either of the two teams, no context of schedule or any of that, and I told you one of these two teams played last night, the other's been off since Thursday, you would assume the Bucks were the team that played last night. Now, back-to-backs, I think we can overstate that a lot, and especially this year where this has been, to be honest, I don't know what to do with a lot of the data because this has been a different year where we have seen, for good reasons, we've seen stars playing a lot more. Part of that was the in-season tournament and the importance that the league put on that. Part of that is the player participation policy, where we saw the Brooklyn Nets fined for basically punting the game against the Bucks a week and a half ago. But we've seen players playing more. And I think, number one, that changes things with the back-to-back, because if you got your stars out there for the game, that's going to increase your chance. But also, it's still playing two games in less than a span of 24 hours, ending game and tipping the next one. But especially when it's a young team, that is that team that's on night two of a back-to-back, it's not quite the same as pointing out, here's the second oldest team in the league, and especially if it's a home versus road back-to-back and they just played last night, then it's relevant. But with teams like the Rockets, I think we can make more of it than it really is at times. And it certainly felt like that tonight. 855-616-1620, the Old National Bank talk and text line as the Bucks fall to the Rockets in Houston. And, look, here's the two biggest things from this game. Giannis continues to be incredible this season. 48 points, 17 rebounds. He shot 64% from the floor and 71% at the free throw line. I mentioned it before. He has essentially consistently been a 70% free throw shooter for a large chunk of this season. And to me, that's the magic number, is if Giannis can get to that 70% and consistently sit there, that changes a whole lot, and especially games where Damian Lillard has it. Tonight was not one of those games. As Justin pointed out, he's going to play much better. We've already seen some of those games. And I think we were all warned or cautioned, look, yeah, Dame can get off to slow starts. I haven't looked at his career splits to see, is this a month-by-month thing for Damian Lillard where kind of a tough start in October and the first part of November, but then he picks it up, and then maybe it cools down at the start of the year? I don't know. But we've seen enough from Damian Lillard to know he still has that. You just haven't seen it quite as consistently as you would have hoped. But, Giannis, and I heard a part of the TV broadcast where Marcus Johnson and Lisa were talking about this too, that Marcus was perplexed that Giannis has not been in the MVP discussion by a lot of talking heads this season. That you hear Joel Embiid, rightfully so, what he's done so far this season. Though there's an interesting subplot to that we'll get to in the next segment. But you hear Joel Embiid's name. You're obviously going to hear Nikola Jokic's name. And Shai Gilgeous-Alexander is the new name that's crashing the party. And again, that Thunder team has been one of the two best teams in the Western Conference all season long, and Shai Gilgeous-Alexander is not the reason, but he is a big reason why. Giannis has been great, shooting 61% from the field, averaging just under 32 points per game. That is the third highest scoring average in the league. He's getting to the free throw line nearly 12 times a game, and that number, that percentage, is up to about 68% now for the entire season. Not great, but it's getting better. About 12 rebounds and 6 assists a game as well. Giannis has been fantastic. You're just searching for it from that second guy consistently, because we've seen stretches of Dame. As I mentioned, we saw stretches of Bobby Portis on that 6-game homestand where he was the third leading scorer and had some big games on that stretch. Damian Lillard's averaging 25 points a game, so he and Giannis are just under 57 points combined from that duo. 43% from the field for Dame, 35% on his threes. We've seen those numbers higher for stretches. And for Dame, too, you need those numbers to be higher. But think about Giannis doing all this in spite of that. Now, Chris has been playing more. Chris has started to score more. We've seen that maybe impact Brook Lopez's offense because he's been going through some tough shooting recently. 32% on threes for the season. That, to me, is the big issue that you look at when you see the drop-off in production. You know what to expect from Giannis. You've gotten the good and the bad from Damian Lillard. Chris Middleton has started to be that guy now, and especially now that we've seen those minutes pick up. But again, it's inconsistency that you've seen. Brook Lopez, the way he started the season, the way he's been playing offensively only the last couple of weeks. Same for Bobby Portis. Malik Beasley has given you consistent shooting, 47% shooting on threes. The issues and the questions aren't there. It's on the other end of the floor. But in another game, yet another game, I should say, where you score 22 points from the bench. And to be fair and clear, that was never going to be a strength of this team, bench scoring. You constructed the roster when you got Giannis and Damian Lillard and Chris Middleton and Brook Lopez. All four of those guys can score 20-plus on a nightly basis. Malik Beasley, we've already seen a 30-point game from Bees this season. Malik Beasley can score. So you weren't expecting the bench to be like what you've seen from other teams, to be like the Pacers, who are the top scoring bench in the league. But you need to get more than you've been getting, and that's not just the absence of Jay Crowder and how that's changed some of the rotations and what you ask of other guys. Jay Crowder was playing very, very well offensively prior to the injury, scoring just under 10 points a game. But that's 9 games, and you're not going to be looking at Jay Crowder to be a 10-plus point per game scorer. You're looking at him to be a glue man. So there's a lot to really start to dissect and just examine of where do we go from here. And that's not the ultimate crossroads of, man, where do the Bucks go from here? That's not what I'm getting at. It's some of those tweaks and changes that this team needs to address. Where do you go with those from this point forward? 855-616-1620. The Old National Bank talk and text line. More after this on Bucks Talk.
You're listening to Bucks Talk.
If you want to add a unique and stunning feature to your home, decorative art glass can be used in a variety of ways to really increase its wow factor. Think of adding a wonderful work of stained glass art to some of your exterior windows, foyer, or front door entry. We can make sure the measurements fit spot on, and you don't even have to replace the glass. You can just add the art glass over the top. It will add some real ambiance that changes as the sun moves throughout the day. And a paint of protection too, which never hurts. Our decorative glass artists are delightful to work with, and they just might give you some ideas that you love, but never even thought of. There's so much of the same out there. Adding a customized work of stained glass art to one or more of your home's windows can really set it apart. This is Stacy Sinks with Les's Glass Service. If it's a new glass shower door, fogged or broken insulated glass replacement, or affordable glass and mirror home decor that you've been looking for, you just can't pass on Les's Glass. Les's Glass Service, serving all of southeastern Wisconsin. Find us at lesglassservice.com.
Better days start with a better night's sleep on a mattress from Milwaukee Mattress and Ken Michaels Furniture. Handcrafted in Milwaukee, our mattresses are custom built to your needs. We have all the comfort and firmness options to give you your best night's rest. Buying direct from our factory showrooms will save you up to 50%, compared to national brands. Shop today during our New Year's sale at Ken Michaels Furniture for over 75 years of uncompromising quality, local factory direct saving, and your best night's sleep. Start the new year right with Norwalk Furniture on sale now at Ken Michaels Furniture. Save 35% on showroom pieces that are ready for immediate delivery, or in just 35 days, you can create a look that reflects your unique style with over 850 fabric and leather options and comfort levels, from cuddling to extra firm support. Norwalk Furniture's American roots go back over 102 years. For better quality American-made upholstery, shop the Norwalk Upholstery Sale at any Ken Michaels Furniture locations in Greenfield, Brookfield, or downtown.
If you need a place for new home interior ideas, then you have to come talk to us. Our on-staff decorators know furniture, home decor, and a lot more. And they're not only creative, but also very willing to help you make great choices. This is Katie with Design Exchange, where discerning buyers with discriminating taste come to find premium home decor at a value. Design Exchange in Heartland and Pewaukee. Stop in often, because our inventory changes daily.
Design Exchange.
Previously, it has been gently loved, but here you'll only find very well-conditioned premium home decor items that you likely won't find elsewhere. Distinctive furniture, unique antiques, and original art, and other tasteful home decor at a value. This is Katie with Design Exchange, where discerning buyers with discriminating taste come to find premium home decor on consignment at 25 to 40% off retail prices in Heartland and Pewaukee.
Design Exchange.
What's better than free? How about play free all year? This January at Potawatomi Casino Hotel Milwaukee, you can win over $2,000 in reward play every month all year long. Just play your favorite games to earn prize drawing entries. Then stop by each Thursday night in January to see if you're a winner. $400,000 in prizes is up for grabs. Over 40 winners each week. Yeah, free is for me. More info at paysbig.com. Must be 21 years old and a club member to play.
The Round Ball Repartee returns. This is Bucks Talk.
112 to 108, the final in Houston. The Rockets take down the Bucks and send the Bucks to a 1-2 road trip. It's a 1-3 week of Bucks basketball. Again, their first losing week of this regular season. As we look at the numbers, too, it's funny that we haven't, we being me, haven't mentioned quite as much recently the numbers since November 3rd, because we've seen issues defensively. That when you see 3, 4, 5 consecutive games with the defense that we've seen from this group, you're not inclined to point out, hey, since this date, it's even better. But since November 3rd, the Bucks still have the second best offense in the league. And again, you're 36 games into the season. So once you get through the homestand, this 4-game homestand, which concludes 1 week from tomorrow, once you get through that and then hit the road in Cleveland to take on the Cavaliers on January 17th. That will be, January 17th, will be game 41 of the season for the Bucks at the midpoint. Since November 3rd, the Bucks, so again, this is taking 32 of the 36 games into account. The Bucks still have the second best offense in the league, trailing only the Indiana Pacers. They have the 15th best defense in the league. But we're starting to see more separation. For a while, we were pointing to, hey, defense is 15th, 13th, somewhere around there. But it's less than a point per 100 possessions that separates 8 or 9 through 15. That has started to level off. And now that's what we're running into with the Bucks, is we're seeing separations. And we're starting to see tiers in place defensively. And the Bucks, with what we've seen the last 4 or so games, they're starting to cement their spots in the tiers you don't want to be in. 15th defensively, so they're at league average. But the difference between the Bucks at 15 and the Chicago Bulls at 14 is nearly 1 point per 100 possessions now. The difference between the Bucks at 15 and the Denver Nuggets at 12 is nearly 2 points per 100 possessions now. It's 2+ points when you're looking at the top 10. So it's a lot of work to be done to start to continue to move up here. But as I mentioned, January is the month you've got to see it because it starts to rapidly catch up with the Bucks. The strength of schedule. It does so for the 76ers as well. The Bucks and the Sixers have played a very, very similar schedule to date. And I think a big part of the reason why you've seen more chatter about Philadelphia versus the Bucks, number one, both these teams have a new coach, and Nick Nurse is a more established coach. And we're already seeing immediately, as we talked about that low-hanging fruit that Bud brought to Milwaukee, you're seeing some of that low-hanging fruit in Philadelphia. You've seen a transformation of sorts for Tyrese Maxey, who has played like an all-star this season. Joel Embiid and the numbers that he has put up leads the league in scoring. You know, as great as Giannis has been, and we talked about Marcus talking about the MVP discussion, Giannis has been very good. It's tough to make a case that Joel Embiid has not been better so far this season. But the Sixers have been blowing out bad teams. Now, is there as much change in terms of their personnel? No. They are playing without James Harden, though, and bringing in new role players alongside Tyrese Maxey in his enhanced role and Joel Embiid. They have a new coach as well. So this isn't exactly, hey, the Sixers haven't had to deal with anything. That's the big difference. The Bucks and Sixers have played a very comparable schedule in terms of ease by way of opponent strength of schedule, win percentage. Sixers have blown out bad teams. The Bucks have not done it as frequently as Philly. That's going to garner you headlines. That's going to get the attention. That's going to say, hey, they got less to work out when this is happening now, even if it is November, December, and January. Joel Embiid's not playing fourth quarters either because of that margin. So that's the optics behind both of them. I think they both have things they need to get better at. The Bucks may be more glaring. And there may have been, it may have came across as though there's a lot of negativity here. It's a frustrating loss. It's not to say all hope is lost. It's not to say, well, the season is in the trash can now. Bucks have no chance. That's not the point of everything we've gone over here. But it's saying, look, you got to start to improve these things as soon as possible. Some of that is just, what are you going to pin on Adrian Griffin when you're missing open shots? I get that. But some of the other areas, coaching staff, players, you need to see some movement on some of this, especially on the defensive end. But it's not just the defense. You have some areas offensively that need some improvement as well. And January is going to be a big month. We're going to continue to point that out. January is a big month for this team because they are going to be slapped in the face with a much more difficult schedule as you exit this month. And it starts at the very back of the month with the New Orleans Pelicans and the Denver Nuggets. Road games in Denver. Monday night, though, the Bucks do return home for the start of a 4-game homestand, and that homestand will present some challenges, including the first of those 4. The Utah Jazz. Do not sleep on that team. Bucks and the Jazz on Monday night. It's a homestand that features the Kings, the Warriors, and the Boston Celtics as well. Monday night, 7 o'clock tip-off for the Bucks and the Utah Jazz. 6:30 is when our pregame coverage begins. And as always, be sure to stick around after the game for Bucks Talk. We will talk to you on Monday night.